Good afternoon to Dr. Benedict and my fellow peers. Today, my team and I, Isa and William, will be giving a presentation on about international banking issues BIS 2020, and the article we have chosen today is International Banking Amidst COVID-19 Resilience and Drivers. On today's topic, we'll be covering on international banking amidst COVID-19, the resilience of international bank claims, drivers of foreign bank claims on the private non-financial sector, the relationship between borrower and lender side factors towards claim growth, and the conclusion of this whole article. On international bank claims have remained stable and indicated by the BIS international banking statistics. The fact that the international bank claims have held up well suggested that these banks have been able to manage the risk associated with lending to borrowers in different countries. This may reflect that the bank's strong risk management practices as well as the overall stability of the global financial system. However, it is important to note that the performance of the international bank claims can be influenced by a variety of factors, including changes in economic conditions and geopolitical events. Looking at the resilience in both cross-border and local claims of international banks, it can be referred to the loan and other credit extended to borrowers in other countries, while local claims refer to loan and credit extended within the country where the bank operates. The fact that the both types of claims have shown resilience suggests that international banks have been able to manage the risk associated with lending in different countries and in their home countries. This resilience may be attributed to various factors, such as the various actions taken by central bank and the government to support the financial system and the economy during the pandemic, and as well as the bank's own risk management practices and contingency plan. Looking at the advanced economic and emerging market economic, refers to the countries with high level of economic development and generally have a well-established financial system, while emerging market economic within the most developing countries are well developed and financial systems that may be less established. The fact that the international banks claims on both types of economics showed resilience suggests that the banks were able to manage their risk associated with lending in both advanced and emerging market economies. This may reflect that the bank's strong risk management practices and their ability to adapt to different market conditions and economic environment. However, it is also important to note that the economic and financial conditions in different countries can vary widely, and there may be different risks associated with lending in different types of economics. Moving on to the next slide, which talks about the resilience of international banking. The comparison being made is between the year-on-year claims growth through mid-2020, which includes the first full quarter after the initial COVID-19 shock, and that through end 2008, which includes the first full quarter of the global financial crisis after the Lehman shock. Year-on-year claim growth is being used to abstract from seasonality effects and to capture all pandemic-related response that affect international banking and cut across both the first and second quarter of 2020. It explains that they focus on year-on-year and claim growth to abstract from seasonality effects that are particularly strong around year ends, in part due to window dressing. This means that if they compare data from the same quarter in different years, they may see a distortion of the underlying trend due to the seasonal effects. By comparing year-on-year changes, they are able to capture impact on pandemic-related responses that affected international banking and cut across both the first and second quarters of 2020, while avoiding the distortion caused by seasonality effects. Moving on to the international bank claims, the international bank claims have shown remarkable resilience during the COVID-19 pandemic in comparison of the global financial crisis. Despite a larger drop in the global output during the pandemic, international bank cross-border claim grew by 4.8% through mid-2020, marking one of the highest yearly growth rates during the GFC. Additionally, local claims in local currency also grew at a historically high rate of 8.6% through mid-2020. This growth rate contrasts sharply with a decline in claims during the GFC. The resilience of international bank claims during the pandemic may reflect their strong risk management practices and contingency planning, as well as the actions taken by central banks and government to support the financial system and the economy. The recent strong growth in international bank claims may also reflect high borrowing needs due to lockdown and other pandemic-related disruptions. Moving on to the cross-border claims. On the non-financial sector remained largely unchanged for both advanced economic and emerging market economic borrowers in the second quarter of 2020. The non-financial sector includes both private and public component. Lending to the private sector that may support consumption and real investment, while lending to the public sector may support real economic activities through fiscal spending. The fact that the cross-border claims on the non-financial sector remain largely unchanged suggests that the international banks were cautious in their lending activities during the pandemic. The uncertain economic environment and the increased risk associated with lending may have led banks to reduce their lending activities to non-financial sector or to focus on borrowers with strong credit profiles. Lastly, looking at the local claims, the statement it suggests that the second quarter 2020 local claims of foreign banks held up as shown in graph 3, which on the next slide. For advanced economic borrowers, these claims decreased by 0.1 trillion following a large increase in the first quarter, which was due to unconventional monetary policy and advanced economies. The increase in the first quarter was largely due to quantitative easing, which was financed by additional bank reserves in the financial system and included in the reporting bank's local claims on the central bank. On the next slide, we can look at the three graphs. Looking at the first graph, the international graph, the vertical lines on the graph indicated the end of year 2008 and end of June 2020, which are being used as reference points for comparing year-on-year claim growth during the two periods. It also provides some technical details about the methodology used to calculate growth rates. Looking at the cross-border graph, the quarterly changes in cross-border claims on the non-financial sector for advanced economies and emerging market economies. It also explains the changes that are adjusted for breaks in series and exchange rate fluctuation. Also note that the data includes unallocated positions in the non-bank subsector and unidentified position. Lastly, the local graph, the adjustments made to data related to cross-border claims on various sectors in different countries. The adjustments are made to account to break in the series of fluctuation in exchange rate, and also mentioned that the inclusion of estimates of claims on the US Central Bank and the government sector from different sources. Now I'll be passing on to Izzat.
Thank you, Gurpreet. So now, drivers of foreign banks' claims on the private non-financial sector. This is to investigate borrower and lender-specific drivers of direct lending to the real economy. The characteristic of borrowers or lenders can only explain a change in claims if the counterparty is responsible. This is why the article used a methodology that assigns claim flows to three mutually exclusive parts. Common component, a borrower country-specific component, which is the borrower side, a lending banking system-specific component, which is lender side. And in this context, the lending banking system-specific and borrower country-specific components capture respectively and the extent to which a lender stands out relative to other banking system and the extent to which a country stands out relative to other borrowers. The common component is, by construction, uniform across both lenders and borrowers and cannot be attributed to either. Right? Borrower and lender side variable may influence claim growth. They need not match demand or supply considerations. Government guarantees in a borrowing country reduce lender risk and boost loan supply. A banking system pre-existing credit lines can meet borrowing countries' credit demand. So now I'll pass it to William.
Thank you, Izzat. And William will be sharing the relationship between borrower side factor and lending side factor. Based on the graph above, it was given that both lender and borrower side component were in negative. The reason is because there is a high liquidity and capital position across most banking systems. Next slide. Borrower side factor. Due to coronavirus outbreak, the bank may expect there is a decline in the borrowing goal. To research the factor, there are several ways. Firstly, pre-existing weakness in every sector. With that, we identify our government debt is strongly associated with a decline in this component. Also, one of the main reasons is the lockdown situation. It affects every sector not doing well. Besides that, measure of the pandemic and policy response. COVID-19 case may not be measured efficiently, and due to lockdown, government implement economic policy to overcome the problem, such as physical support measure. Next slide. Lending side factor. In the second quarter of 2020, the graph shown above have been decline of an output in the lending side. In order to overcome the problem, there are two characteristic lending banking systems, such as bank capitalization and credit commitment, which being possibly claimed to the lender. So next slide. So there is other alternative way to overcome the problem on the lender and borrower side, which is defined lending. It is quite similar to the traditional lending services provided by the bank, except the defined lending is provided by the P2P decentralized application. There's a lot of benefits such as transparency. Thank you very much. I'll pass the time to Izzat for conclusion.
Thank you, William. So based on the article, you can see a lot of things happen and challenges that international banking facing. This has also happened to Islamic banking, where they have to face a lot of challenges such as reduction revenue and credit growth, lower profit rates, lower business volume, and higher financing impairment charges, according to article written by Mihajat in 2021. So in conclusion, bank appears to have provided loans to stressed borrowers as the first line of defense against the shock. Borrower side measures of reduced vulnerability such as lower government debt or lower credit to GDP imbalance and stronger economic activity in borrower countries such as higher output growth or milder lockdowns were positively associated. Better capitalization in lending banking system in terms of risk-based capital and leverage ratios was positively correlated with the lender side component. The size of current credit lines was positively correlated with borrower and lender side components. So that's all. Thank you.